All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to One Soccer. I'm your host for today, Josh Deming, joined by my colleague, Alex Gage-Aruzek. And we're here today to discuss the Canadian men's national team's match last night against Mexico. We can touch a little bit on the U.S. game as well. The U.S. game was definitely a more attractive game to watch. Yesterday's game was, I'd say, a little frustrating, Alex. So we'll see how we tackle that today. But how are you doing? And what were your initial thoughts on the I don't even know what to call it, the spectacle that was Canada-Mexico yesterday?
Yeah, we're doing well, and the game itself was a bit of a strange one because I think if you had tuned in and you weren't aware that it was a friendly, it didn't feel like a friendly. It felt a little more like maybe felt a lot like a Canada-Peru or a Canada-Chile, where it was like very important games, very physical, a lot of tackles. Javier Aguirre just losing his mind on the touchline. Referee getting swarmed at every moment. It was hard to tell it was a friendly, and kind of ironic, I guess, because in the U.S. game, at least someone clearly didn't tell the U.S. what was at stake. It felt like they were just so uninspired, while Mexico was the opposite for them. It felt like this was a game of their lives, and yeah, it led to a very, I guess it depends on your definition of entertainment. If you like that sort of game, it was the one for you. But certainly, if you want a little more free flowing, a little more, attacking football, it wasn't exactly that kind of game.
No, it was not. And if you guys are with us in the stream, drop a like, say hello, and let us know, is 0-0 against Mexico a good result? I said yesterday is one of the first half takeaways I noticed was just that, like you mentioned, Alex, like this Mexico team was definitely more up for it. I got a little bit of feedback of just basically saying Mexico's not good, like they're not playing good, like they're chippy, they're like this isn't pretty football. But the point was like I was making was that the United States showed nothing. I didn't say Mexico was walking all over us or they were horrible. I just said that they were up for it. Like Mexico made this difficult. They did not want to make sure that Canada played the same kind of way as they did against the United States. And I was just saying that because basically in the opening, 20 minutes of the U.S. game, it looked like a bunch of sleeping players against a team that really wanted to take the game to them. I don't think we could say that this time. Now, whether Mexico played good or not, that's up for debate. I'm seeing a lot of feedback. I thought we were the better team throughout that game. So maybe it's just the Mexican supporters in my mentions that are saying, no, we had better possession. We had better chances. I didn't really think so, Alex. Like I would say, it was a cagey affair, but I'd say that probably the better opportunities, or at least the best opportunity in the game, fell to Canada. And I felt like if one of the two teams were going to win it, it was going to be Canada. Did you get that same vibe, or are you just always knowing that this was going to be a 0-0 draw?
Yeah, I'd say Canada was probably the better team for about 75-80. What I will say about Mexico, they paid off in the sense that like they were patient and they clearly wore and tried to wear down Canada. And I think Mexico really finished the game strongly. They put Canada under pressure, and it kind of felt in that like period of the game where it opened up, Mexico was the likelier team to win in the last 10 minutes. And I suppose in football and soccer, everyone's always it's always about what the last 10 minutes were like. So maybe that just kind of a lot of people just left the game thinking about how it ended. But I think overall, Canada was comfortable. They weren't really under threat for most of that game. I don't think they were in a position where they were worried about losing. But also the reality is Canada, they did get that Cyle Larin chance kind of out of nothing. It was a great ball from Ali Ahmed, but they also did struggle in Mexico's final third. So yeah, I think ultimately 0-0 was kind of a fair result because I think that kind of indicates how both teams approach the game. Like Mexico is really like, all right, don't let Canada play. Don't let Canada open up the field. We will get cooked. Let's slow it down. Let's make it choppy. Mission successful. As for Canada, they weren't able to press as much because Mexico was playing really direct. They weren't really getting drawn in the same way the U.S. were. Canada was also not getting as much done in the final third, but defensively, Canada was really solid. And even at the end when Mexico was pushing, Alphonso Davies was phenomenal defensively. There were some other big interventions. Dane Sinclair had put in a good shift. Overall, I think both teams kind of left and were like, shrug the shoulders kind of game.
So I'm curious because you mentioned the press. How big of a difference was having Jonathan David in the starting 11 when we took on the United States versus when we took on Mexico? Because the way that we pressed I mean, I don't know if it's just we were up for it and Jesse really got the team fired up because it was the United States, but all I can picture in that opening half was every time one of the back four on the United States had the ball, David was there, Larin was there, Schaffelberg, Ahmed, you had Chouanier pressing, you had Eustachio pressing. We were suffocating them. A lot of it came from Jonathan David. I thought he had a complete performance against the United States. The goal and the assists are nice, but his link-up play, the way he was kind of drifting in and out of space, and then obviously just the press, like he was sensational. So this time we had Cyle Larin, and then Jonathan Osorio was kind of in that role up top as well. What did you make of those two? Do you? I had question marks of whether Jonathan Osorio would really fit the way that Jesse Marsch wanted to play, which is why I was so surprised to see him get starts at Copa America. And I think seeing him in this type of game where I don't know, I just don't know if it's a fit, if he can do exactly what Jesse's asking him to do. Do you think that's a little harsh, given that he did have some decent showings at Copa America? Or do you think when I'm looking at a player, like I hardly noticed him that game on the ball, and certainly off the ball, he couldn't really bring that pressing ability like a Chouanier or a David can?
This is Osorio, you're saying?
Osorio.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wasn't looking at the press too much as being something Canada was, like I'd say Mexico is more the reason why Canada wasn't able to press as much as because I think there were moments where Canada wanted to press, and there was about 6 minutes in, Canada had a really good press. I think Larin started it. They forced Mexico out wide. They won the ball back. Then Osorio just took a bit of a bad shot, but it was a good sequence. I think after that, Mexico kind of realized, like, oh, okay, let's play direct. Like I'm looking here, like Luis Romo, the midfielder, like he had 42 touches and he completed 19 out of 31 passes and he played 90 minutes. Like he hardly got a sniff because Mexico were often bypassing him. And when he did get the ball, he was, he was getting suffocated. He was getting pinched out. On the other side, Eric Lira was slightly better in his 90 minutes, 25 out of 33 passes. Only 42 touches though, just like Roma. Like he didn't see the ball 50, 60, 70 touches like you might want your midfielders to. Like at Mexico overall, like also didn't play into Canada's press. And I think that's kind of maybe why you didn't notice an Osorio so much, because they were constantly going over him. And then for Canada in possession, Mexico did a great job of allowing Canada to get the ball wide, but they were struggling to filter into the middle because whenever they did, it would be fouls, right? It would be tight. So the reality is we didn't see much of Osorio in between the lines. We didn't see much of Larin getting the ball with the back to goal. Mexico was doing a good job of kind of pinching that off. So I'd say it was it wasn't really as much a game for either of those two as it was them struggling. I think credit has to be given for what Mexico is doing. Although, as Jeff kind of mentions in the chat, the reality is too, Mexico were kind of helped by the fact that fine, they wanted to play physical, they wanted to play chippy. They were also getting rewarded for it because there weren't yellow cards. There weren't, the ref was just kind of like, all right, we'll just keep calling fouls. I don't really feel like giving out many yellows. That did also kind of end up changing the state of the game slightly.
I was going to say, because you're talking about maybe this game wasn't suited for Osorio, but a player it was suited for was Richie Larin. And I thought Canada's most dangerous duo in this game was Larin and Ali Ahmed. I thought Ahmed had put in a good shift. And it just seemed like it was a real introduction to what a true CONCACAF game can be like. I don't know how many times I saw Ali. He was trying to create things. I mean, he made runs. He was looking to create chances. He was thrown down. He was chopped down. He drew fouls. He drew a few yellows. Probably should have drew a few more yellows. And Richie Larin is just a player that plays on the edge. He always seems up for these type of games. When the chippier it is, the more that Richie I think buys into it, and he can keep his composure. Not doing anything stupid, but I think he likes this type of fight. If Canada was going to create anything, I mean, I know our best chance came from Ahmed's really good ball. What was it that duo that impressed you the most, or is there anyone else in this game where you're like, okay, well, if I was expecting a goal, it would have come from the left, or it would have came through the middle, direct? What were you thinking? Because for me, I think Ahmed and Larin had a really good game.
Yeah, I thought Ahmed was probably the best player. Again, arguably, well, against the U.S., there's some more debate against who it is. Well, against Mexico, I think he was by far and away the most lively, the best player, despite getting chopped down a fair amount. He was getting targeted ruthlessly. He won. Somehow FUTMob says he won only 4 fouls per opta. It felt like more than that. It felt like I guess there's a few that weren't called where he got chopped into the boards and the refs just play on, guys, no worries. So yeah, that was quite something. I'm curious to know how many. Yeah, Ahmed was fantastic.
Yeah.
Dribbling, going at guys. He put in the great ball for Larin. Considering the state of the game, perfect. You want to see. I like the Larea shout. I thought he was really good. Stepped in for Johnston. It's funny because they're a bit different players, but Larea's proven that it was a bit surprising at times. Like Marsh was asking him to play a bit in the back three, like Johnson does, but Larea's Done that now, right? Larea's kind of had a very different experiences over the last few years, so I thought Larea stepped in nicely. I thought Davies was great. I thought Davies was just, again, it's going to take something to get used to that we're maybe not seeing that sort of Davies where it's all over the final third, but what he's doing defensively right now, that's a clean sheet. The day before was only a goal, or not day, the game before was only a goal against the US, during Copa America. Wasn't bad defensive performances. Davies, I've really liked what he showed there. Other than that, I'd say those were probably the standouts for what it's worth. I thought Eustachio was very lively. I felt like he was everywhere.
He's making good runs. He got himself in some good positions.
He was making good runs. He was making a lot of tackles. He was getting involved. I think for him, he was just maybe, and like a lot of guys, I think Canada as a team were just kind of missing that final pass. It felt like they were getting into good areas in the wrong cross, wrong shot. I think the game was kind of summed up by that Liam Millar chance where it was right there at his feet and he just kind of swung at air. It was kind of just one of those days for Canada in the Mexico box.
So I want to, you made a lot of good points. Let us know in the comments what you guys thought of the match. I'll get into a few as well, but I want to pick up where Alex started there with Alphonso Davies, because I feel like we haven't given him, I feel like, hard to describe what, I feel like because he's playing at left back, you don't notice him as much, and maybe we haven't given him as much credit because in games, you have Shackelberg, being entertaining or David, but Alphonso Davies is the face of this program. He's a player for years under the national team that would basically have a free position. He could play, we've seen him play striker. We've seen him play center attacking mid, on the wings. He goes wherever he really wants to go. And I remember at times, Alex, during World Cup qualifying when Davies was injured, we had a bit of a debate, is Canada playing better without Alphonso Davies? Because sometimes he gets in a position where he just does a little bit too much. I think this speaks to Jesse Marsh, that Jesse came into this dressing room, had a chat with Alphonso Davies, gave him the captain's armband, and then asked him to basically simplify his game. And we've heard Alphonso Davies say, I want to play as a winger. I thought I was brought to Bayern to be a winger. So because at Bayern he's playing at a left back, he probably likes the fact that when he goes to Canada, he's got freedom to do whatever he wants. And now, Jesse's like, listen, I need you in the back four. This is where I think you're going to best help this team. And we're seeing that. The back four looks so much better with him in it. He helps round it out. He definitely has his opportunities to go forward. He's not afraid to do it, but I don't think he ever puts himself in a position where he can make the team in trouble at the back. And if he does, he's got the speed to recover. And on top of it, the other thing I wanted to highlight is, and I don't know if you noticed this, Alex, I don't think he took a single set piece this window. I think
other than throw-ins.
Other than throw-ins, but
he didn't. No, it's facts in terms of dead balls. Yes,
that's part of it though, because we criticized Davies over the years because I don't think he's great over set pieces. Nothing against him. It's just not his specialty. But maybe because he thinks he needs the responsibility, he's always over it. But it's just interesting that Jesse comes in and said, listen, I need you to play left back. You're our captain. You're not over set pieces. I don't want you to, make the back line vulnerable by making crazy runs. Just simplify your game. And I think very under the radar, Alphonso Davies has been fantastic at left back. And I just wanted to give him a big shout out because I've been really impressed from what I've seen.
Yeah, I think Davies has been excellent. I think credit has to be given to both parties. I think credit has to be given to Davies first and foremost for just kind of accepting, right? It's a bit more boring. You're not getting to play as a 10. You're not getting to play as a winger. You're not going to kind of just do everything in attack. You have to defend. You have to do some ugly work. You're wearing the armband, which is always tough for someone a little younger to lead like that. All that isn't easy. And he's just kind of all right, head down. Like you mentioned, he's kind of lost a little responsibility in one sense where it's not set pieces. It's not everything going through him in an attack. But then on the flip side, he's gained a lot of hard responsibilities. You have to really defend. You have to take on matchups 1v1. It's just been head down, get the job done, no complaint. And he's done it very well. So that's been one thing to see that Davies has quietly been putting up 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10s every week. And also it's credit from Marsh from being it's tough to tell your best player, go play at left back. but also it's a credit from Marsh to be like, all right, he can still influence the game out there, right? Like, just completely random because I saw that this morning. Like, Trent Alexander-Arnold was named man of the match in back-to-back games for England, playing at right back instead of midfield where he was at the Euros. You can, in the modern game, be pretty dominant and influence the game at fullback. We know that. So on one hand, Marsh is like, all right, go just dominate the game at what you do at club level. But it's like a nod to his teammates. Like, it's like, yeah, David, Schaffelberg, Ahmed, Osorio, Schwanier, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I believe that you guys can be the attack, like be the solutions in the attack. It doesn't have to all run through Davies. You guys are good enough. Davies can support you from the back and be a part of the attack, but the attack isn't the Davies attack. It isn't the David attack. It isn't the Larin attack. I think that's credit to Marsh. And yeah, really, I feel like the only thing left for this plan to fully work is to just get a consistent source of offense and to find that like final mix. But I thought Marsh and Davies have really nailed what they expect out of the two.
I agree, and I think it just shows that Jesse Marsh, has a lot of respect from this room, and it starts with your captain, with your best player in Alphonso Davies. So I just wanted to, just highlight that, and I really like what I'm seeing there. On the flip side, because you brought it up, finding a consistent way of maybe scoring goals. We got a clean sheet, fantastic. We did score 2 goals against the United States, but we could have scored more. This game was a little bit uglier. We did have a clear-cut chance, and this time I don't look at Cyle Larin where I'm like, you got to put that away, similar to the chance he had where he just kind of fired at Schulte. I thought Larin did really well to get a good header on that. I don't think he could have placed it much better. I think it was just a really class save. We didn't score, so I'm curious, and I don't want to focus too much on Larin because I don't think he had a bad match at all, and I think on a good day maybe that goal goes in. I don't think that is down to him just a poor hit. But what did you make of the chances that we had in this game? And I guess coming off the bench, we saw Tanny come on. Do you like that we saw Russell Rowe go out wide, which I thought was a little bit interesting? They gave him a chance, but they threw him out on the right hand side. What did you make of that? And are you a little worried going in the next window about where we're going to start finding some more goals from? No, nah.
I'd say yes and no. I mean, because on one hand, I thought Canada offensively looked quite good against the U.S., but then this Mexico game did open up a bit of a, not problem, but yeah, you can say problem, because it's something that has been there before Jesse Marsh. It was there during the Copa America, especially in games against like Peru and Chile. The reality is for Canada, they have struggled against like lower defensive lines. Like, it feels like for them when teams are sitting a little deeper and they're trying to chop the game up as Mexico has, Canada kind of lacks that final pass, that final action. And then in the rare moments when they do, like, it feels like Canada right now, they need 5 to 10 shots to create that goal. Like 5 to 10. It's like the US, right? Like, they had so many dangerous shots and then they got 2 goals. And against this Mexico team, they had like 1 or 2 dangerous shots and they didn't turn it into a goal. Like, it's just for whatever reason their finishing just isn't at the ruthless, at the sharp level that it needs to be to break open these sorts of cagey games. So I guess I am a bit worried in the sense that I think a lot of teams are going to look at what Mexico did, like, all right, let's throw it at Canada, like they against Peru, same thing. Chile, same thing. Like, if you muck the game up, if you make it ugly, Canada might struggle a bit. So yeah, we'll see what they can produce in that regard. I was surprised that we didn't see David get the chance to lead the line. That's all that I'm asking. Just let Jonathan David lead the line just once, because I understand it's nice to, want to get Cyle Larin going. We talked about on the last one of these where Larin right now just needs a goal because, again, he's at least getting in the right areas. At the end of the day, let Dave, David's the centerpiece of this attack. Let him kind of have a moment on his own up front, and I think that remains the best solution. But also, it's a friendly. If better to give Larin a shot now and see what you think of it, than it's coming to a must-win game and you kind of go with what you know. So I guess on that side,
I honestly thought Larin was going to score that game. I had a feeling before kickoff. I'm like, I just feel like because we went with a one-striker system, but it wasn't David, it was Larin. He was getting chances, he just wasn't taking them, and he did have a really good chance. And this time, it's not bad finishing. It was an incredible save. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. I'm going to go through a few comments here, guys, so get some questions in, and then Alex and I are going to play a little game of stock up, stock down from this window to see kind of what players Had a good window, which one maybe put themselves in a good position going forward with this team. And I do, before I get into the comments, want to highlight Nico Seeger, who got his Canadian debut. And Alex, I don't know if you noticed, I believe this was his first touch, but I literally laughed out loud when I saw it because it was just a very CONCACAF way to start your Canadian career. There was a through ball that went over to Seeger. He showed good pace to get to the ball. He did a little Ronaldo chop. Then he made a nice pass, splitting two Mexican players, a successful pass. I'm like, nice. And then he just gets flattened by a Mexican defender, throws him to the deck. I'm like, that is just kind of sums up what CONCACAF's like. You think you're good. You think you made the right move, and he did, and then something just smacks you in the face a little bit. So I thought that was a good showing. I was a little surprised to see him go at right back though, Alex. I thought he was going to come in when I saw his number come up for, I think at the time, Eustaquio or Chouanier.
Osorio was even still on it.
Or Osorio. Then they threw him at right back. So I was a little surprised. What'd you make of his little brief debut?
It makes sense that he went at right back just because Johnston was out. And that meant that Larea played 70 against the US and he'd played 70 against Mexico. So I imagine, because your only other right back is Ahmed, and Ahmed had played 160 this camp already. So I guess it just kind of made sense in who else they would have put at right back, right? But I thought he was okay, right? Hard for him to get in the game because he came in, it was so choppy. Mexico had just started to get momentum. But I guess on one hand, I like that he got into it. He wasn't shy, but I was kind of joking about this on the NFP podcast last night. We're just we also have to remember, we're kind of joking, oh, Seeger, he's getting his CONCACAF initiation, etc. He plays in Croatia.
Yeah.
This guy played in youth sports as well. I think he's fine in terms of physical play, getting chopped down. That's why it was that play you mentioned where he got cleaned out. He just kind of looked around, no foul. All right, he just got up. There was no complaint of all right, I'm fine with it. And then a few minutes later, he got someone real good. He's all right, you want to play that game? Again, I play in Croatia. If you ever watch some Croatian league games, you would be surprised with the physicality. So shout out to that. And I think that's why Seeger is going to be a good fit on this Canadian team. He's technical. He's a very quality player. But also he brings a bit of that bite. He brings a bit of that feistiness that you see in a lot of Canadian players like Eustaquio, right? A lot of quality there, also a lot of bite. You see it in an Ali Ahmed last night, right? He was given Tajon Buchanan. That's one of his best attributes. We're seeing it from Davies, right? A little it's kind of Canada right now, skilled but also willing to mix it up. And also to that point, Canada, just completely as an aside, but Josh, Canada in that Mexico game last night, 2-3 years ago, they lose that because they lose their heads.
Yeah.
Oh, Canada now is at a point where it's like Peru, it's like Chile. You want to play ugly, you want to bring your fists. Canada will swing right back, but they won't also, lose their heads and make the game ugly either.
That's why I said a couple times that whether Johnson was healthy or not, I think this could have been a game suited for Richie Larea. Because when he comes, he is that type of player where he can get right in your face, he can give it as he can take it, but he doesn't lose his head. If Richie gets in a heated battle and he gets taken down and he gets in someone's face, as soon as that conversation is done, he's right back focused and he's good to go. And to your point, maybe a few years ago we don't have players like that can do that. And the way that the ref wasn't calling things, it gets frustrating on players. You got to give them credit as well. It's not easy playing a game that is a friendly, but it's not, and it's being treated the way it is, and to continue to get knocked to the ground, thrown to the deck. You saw Aguirre, going for VAR when there's no VAR in there. It was a bit of a heated game, but I thought the Canadian team kept their heads pretty well. And I wanted to highlight Richie because I just think he is for these type of games. I mean, Peru, Chile, Mexico, games like this, I just think it's very well suited for Richie Larea to come in and just do what he does best.
And shout out to Richie Larea because there's always this, the idea of, Richie Larea scares some people against CONCACAF. He's a walking red card. He never gets red cards. I think the only red card I can remember him getting in the last few years, he wasn't even dressed. It was against New York City, and he just he's probably thinking I'm not even dressed. I'm just gonna earn a suspension. He never gets red cards. And I just want to say credit to him considering how much he's kicked all game, how much he gets in guys' face. He's kind of mastered that get this right up to the line, but never actually cross the line. And sometimes you need guys like that on your team to just especially when Mexico is doing a good job, because there's a few guys on that Mexico team, for example, Cesar Huerta, heck of a player. I actually got a chance to watch him this summer. Pumas came to BC Place in Vancouver. Great player.
Yeah.
He was playing on the edge yesterday in terms of like he got that yellow and he gave St. Clair a bit of a knock. He gave Ustaka, I think, a bit of a knock. Yeah, that's CONCACAF, right? You got a little class, you got a little oomph, and Canada's kind of felt that balance because it's like, for example, like you see some of the other teams in the region, it can be a hard balance to strike.
I mean, it's harder said than done. And I'm going to use an example from just my personal life, so it's not the same, and I'm very well aware it's not the same. But I was playing at a game recently, and I was getting it's like a friendly, like it's a bush league kind of like local soccer league, and I was getting chopped down to the point where I'm like, this is a bush league. Like I'm getting pissed off, and the players aren't getting yellow cards, and I was I got a bit of a spazzy side to me, so I was losing my head a little bit, and after like getting chopped down 3-4 times, I was getting fouls, but I just wasn't getting yellow cards from it. And then one time I just kind of lost my cool and the ball was going up there, and I'm a littler guy, but I just flattened somebody, and then I almost got sent off. I got a yellow card. I was getting heated. I was getting mad, but I'm like, this is a joke. And watching Ahmed and Richie down the right-hand side, the amount of times and you could see the frustration, but I want to give them credit because it's not easy to play on the edge like that. And it's so easy to fall over, say something stupid, do something stupid. And all of a sudden, you hurt your team and you're out of the game, or you're just not focused. You're not back into the game. You're focusing on what just happened, and it can get you in a little bit of trouble. Now, my example is not the exact same because it's a bush league, but Josh wasn't able to keep his head, and I got a good stern talking to and a yellow card from the ref. So, anyways,
at least you didn't get sent off, and it's a learning lesson.
No, but I remember I walked off, and there's unlimited subs, so I'm like, I need to get out of here because I'm gonna say something stupid because I'm pissed off. But anyways, moving on.
good example, right? It's something where it's like, yeah, funnily enough, there is a bit of a crossover between like a rec or a beer league and like in CONCACAF, right? It's like, again, we're not going to turn it into the Josh and Alex show, but it's like this weekend we were playing a game. I took studs to the calf. No foul. All right. Just like, head down. Don't let that affect you. Move on, right? And that's sometimes it can be tough, right? Like no one wants to get kicked. You could see in Ali Ahmed's face. There was one point I think he got fouled. He was looking at the ref. Like, okay, the first 2-3 times I get it, but number 4, number 5, do something. Yeah. The ref's like, no, and Ahmed's like, fine, like just head down, and keep doing your thing.
Yeah, the Canadian fans were not happy. I didn't highlight the ref too much, which maybe I should have did a little bit more, because when you allow those things to continue to take place, it just makes for a chippier game. Like it's always nicer to lay down the line, throw to yellow right away. Have a talking to. He just kind of let this team play, and it's the reason it turned out to a pretty ugly game. And Alex, I'm pretty sure I don't have it on me. Maybe you have the stats, but I believe the final passing percentage for both teams was like 70% or lower, which is wild for a game at this level. Usually, you see like 300-ish passes with like an 80% plus pass accuracy. And I think these ones were like way less than that. And they were like in the 60s. Every time I looked at a player's stats, it's like even Davies was high. And I think he was like in the 70s for his pass accuracy. And other than that it was a choppy game. It wasn't great.
Yeah, I got it open in
front
of me.
Okay. How was I?
So you have Mexico completed just 218 passes at a 70% clip, and Canada completed 193 at a 69% nice clip. And then fouls were 24-19 for Mexico, and the yellow cards were 3-3.
Yeah, that sums up the game and makes it a little.
Canada won 60 of 40, or they won 60 of 107 duels. They won over 60% of their duels. So shout out to Canada. That's pretty interesting.
I like that. All right, I'm gonna try to get into some of the comments now before we go over to our stock up, stock down. I have had one from Jeff here on the screen for a little bit. It says it's a shame that we only got to see Seager as a fullback rather than the midfield partnership with Eustachio. Hope to see Seager as a center mid in the future. He had a bit of a rough night at right back. I wouldn't say he had a rough night. I feel like he had a nice introduction to what it's like, but I thought. I was fine with the way he played. I don't think it necessarily means that we're going to see him as a right back moving forward. I just think the situation called for Richie to come off, and then Seager went on at right back. I still, Alex, unless you disagree, I feel like his future with this national team will be in the midfield eventually. But for right now, there's nothing wrong with getting reps at right back because he's comfortable playing there as well.
Yeah, and it's the same with how they kind of use him in a bit of bit of both, right? Like he made his return to injury and it was at right back. Like Hayuk splits kind of like we play you where you need you. For Canada, I think they would have loved to have him in the midfield. The reality is they didn't want to run Cyle Larin to the ground, especially the way he was getting kicked. It was fine. And what I will say, I would say he was okay at right back. I think it might have felt a bit rough just because Seeger being on the pitch kind of coincided with Canada's worst period of the game where they were kind of struggling to hold on to the ball. Mexico is getting all the momentum. And for what it's worth, I feel like a lot of nothing was really coming down Seeger's side in that sense. It was a lot of it was Mexico was doing a good job of hitting in transition, hitting down the middle, even down the left. But then that's where Davies kind of stood up and like thwarted a lot of those attacks coming down his side. I think Seeger, just coming on was just a bit of bad timing that he just came on and Canada's heads just dipped underwater after doing so well to keep their heads up.
So, Alex, we're going to focus next on two polarizing figures. Honestly, after every single game, I feel like these two players are mentioned no matter what. And I'm trying to find comments that could be just kind of touched on Larin, but we're going to touch on them a little bit more because there's a little debate going on here in the chat. I'm just going to read out some of the things and we can do it. And then we'll touch on Liam Millar as well. So M is saying that, watch the David goal against the US and tell me that Larin has no value. A couple of comments were just saying, I wish my coach gave me as many chances as Larin. It's time to maybe move on from Larin. We need someone who can put the ball in the back of the net. I get that, referring to David scoring the goal and Larin, had value in that goal. But we have won the match without Larin too. His work rate is similar, or his work is similar to Cavallini, but we still need someone who scores more than a goal each year. True, an informed striker takes attention off David as well. So a little back and forth going there, Alex. Is there a side that you picked? It seems like, because there is a split. There's a lot of Canadian fans out there who don't mind that Larin isn't scoring. They'd obviously like him to score, but they know that he brings more to the game. And then to the biggest point is that it's not like we have another option right now that is coming off the bench or is making it easy. Because I keep highlighting Tanny here. He was giving several chances, and he's entertaining to watch come off the bench, but he does not score either. If Tanny scores any of those goals in Copa America or even scores against the U.S., I feel like all of a sudden now he gets a start, right? Like he gets a look because he's putting the ball in the back of the net. But he's not. It's not like someone else is coming and doing what Larin can't do. So I feel like Jesse keeps going back to Larin because despite not scoring, we do keep getting results with that David-Larin partnership. And until a striker, I believe, comes into this team, whether it's Russell Rowe, Ugbo, maybe Bear, someone's got to start scoring goals. Otherwise, I feel like Larin will continue to get chances, and I guess deservingly so, because he's playing well and no one else is scoring goals.
Yeah, this one's tough because I think this is contextual to Jesse Marshball purely, because I'm usually of the opinion of and I would carry this though, a striker, his contributions is so much more than goals. And for Larin, he's proven that he can help the game in more ways than just his goals. He can be physical, he can press, he can work hard off the ball, have good positioning, be a threat, open up space. Great. What I have noticed about Jesse Marshball, and I think this is typical of a lot of teams that play this kind of way, Jesse Marsh's system is intense. It requires a lot of high pressing from the first 60, 70 minutes. What have we kind of noticed, Josh, throughout this? It's 10 games now, Jesse Marsh? Canada kind of has a tendency to gas out around minute 75. And naturally so. You're playing so intense, so on the front foot that you end up in these games where it was Copa America, there was a few where in the second half against Argentina in the opener, just kind of ran out of gas. Netherlands in the first one, just kind of ran out of gas in that friendly against Peru and Chile. Peru, they were up a man, so they didn't really need to worry about it. But Chile was kind of right, kind of ran out of gas at the end, and Chile was the better team to end the game. Venezuela, right? It was Venezuela had a bit of a late push after Canada was on fire to start the game.
Well, look at the United States game we just saw. I mean, that game, no reason should have been an opportunity for the United States to tie it. We dominated. We missed opportunities, which goes back to Cyle Larin not being able to score, or any of our strikers. It stayed 2-0. They score a kind of a fluky goal in the last 15 minutes.
It's U.S. peppy chant Canada runs out of gas. Canada against Mexico. Mexico's best portion of the game, the last 15 minutes. Look, that's expected. That's the risk reward Jesse Marsh is going for. You try to put the game away early. You make the opponent uncomfortable. You come out flying. You get a 2 or 3 goal lead, And you're laughing because no matter how well they play the rest of the way, you've taken over the game. Well, for that to work, you need the early goals. You need someone to be firing and right away. And I think that's where I'm kind of like, normally I think if you're playing a different, like if you're kind of going rope a dope, you're waiting, you don't mind Larin. Because remember, like that was like what John Herdman had at the relationship John Herdman and Larin had, where it was like Larin knew even if he was struggling, even if Canna wasn't in the game, he just needed a shot. And it didn't matter if that was minute 15 or if it was minute 75, Larin was going to get that. With Canada, there's kind of feels like there's a pressure for them to get two by the 60th if they really want to be assured. If they get one by the 60th, they can, they're good enough to lock it down. But like that's kind of the sweet spot of just to go for it. And the reality is, you need to get the best system out there to get those goals, to get to pay off the hot start. And I think right now, the reality is with Larin's confidence, with Larin's form, you can see it. I almost feel bad for him in a sense that like Ahmed puts in this chance. Larin does everything right. Movement was good. Header. It's just not clicking for him right now. And you can see the way he looks up, right? Like it's even one of those like little things. Informed striker, keeper saves it, probably shrugs, laughs, goes on to the next one. You could almost see like Larin, the way it was like it affected him. He was like, oh shoot, like that was my chance, that was my moment. Like the way he kind of grabbed his head. All right, just like you gotta find a way to get the most out of it. And the reality is, when you look at all the options like you mentioned, it's David leading the line on its own. It's just focusing on him. He's the one informed guy right now for club and for country as a striker. And then from there, you see if Larin finds his form again, if Bear finds his form again, or not finds his form again, sorry, but just like if he's at the new club, once he gets firing for Auxerre, pardon me, if Oluwasi takes his chances for Canada, if Russell Rowe takes his chances for Canada, then we start having that discussion. But I think this has just shown that you need to start strong. And as David showed against the US, where he scored a goal and got an assist, David seems to be the one guy that you can rely on in that regard.
It is. Now, I have a quick question around that, because I guess when it comes to Jonathan David and what I thought he did really well against the United States was that he does drop very, very deep, right? Like he does really well at combining. He kind of almost floats into spaces he wants to go to. Do you think if he had to, because he has Cyle Larin there as well, and I thought they did a pretty good job against the United States to not, take each other's space. Without Cyle Larin, let's say we switch up the system a little bit and go to a 4-2-3-1, because I'm seeing that, which is a fair comment, and I agree. And Alex, you and I have talked about it quite a bit, having Kone in that 10 role. Do you think that would take away from David at all and his ability to kind of drift around when knowing that he's got to be the lone striker up front, or do you think that kind of plays into his game as well?
That is his game. That's what he does at Lille, right? Like how often do you see him drop in almost as a 6, and then the next thing you know, he's in the box. Like we talked about it last time. Like he constantly covers like 13 kilometers a game, which is like unheard of for a striker because he runs and is fit like a midfielder. I think for David, you can get that out of him, and that's kind of the beauty of it. And I think Marsh would also adjust, because it's also like Marsh wants to hit early, so he's probably like, David, don't drop back unless we're building up. Like if we win the ball back, stay a little higher.
Yeah,
but David can also do that too. We've seen it for Lille, where remember that season where he was, I think it was 2 years ago, where he was only getting at times 15, 20 touches a game, and he was still scoring every game.
That was under Gorvnik, right?
I'm thinking it was like the first year under Fonseca to start. Like there were some games where there was like 20, 25 touches. He'd still score a goal or two, because Fonseca was kind of like, just go up, stay up. And then like as he evolved under Fonseca started, getting him a lot more involved in the build-up. Like David can also play that way. That's why I have zero issues with it. Like David has grown so much as a player and proven that like I can lead the line for Lille and do all those things and still score goals. Do it, like let him do it for Canada, because I like the 2-striker idea, especially when Canada's got a lot of options. But like we need to get one of them firing for Canada.
Well, what you see right here, do you agree with what's on the screen? Is it going to be a midfield 3 of Chouanière, Eustachio, Kone, maybe Ahmed / Buchanan out wide, Schaffelberg out wide, David up top, right? Like that's the dream once Kone's back.
Yeah, go for it. Like that's it. Just focus on getting chances. Focus on that aspect of the game, because that's kind of like the same debate like we had with Schaffelberg in this summer. Versus starters and coming off the bench, etc. For Jesse Marsh's system, emphasis has to be on the first 60 minutes. And that's how Schaffelberg won a role, because we realized he can score early against Venezuela. He can score early against the US. He can give you something from the start of games. And right now, I think the best way to start games is to let Jonathan David lead the line and just to feed him chances. And again, I continue to say, for a slumping Cyle Larin, coming off the bench could be a good thing. And that's tough for defenses. Imagine, again, you spend all game chasing around 13-kilometer a game David, and off comes the bench as Larin. And you're like, oh, like now I'm going to get worn down physically. And I'm already worn down. Like, they're used to Canada's advantage.
Well, which is why I was surprised. Honestly, I was surprised that, and maybe it's because David plays a lot for his club, and these are friendlies, and Larin has not had a ton of minutes at Mallorca, and Marsh wants to get him firing. So it makes sense. But I would have imagined it would have been David starting, Larin coming off the bench. But it also makes sense because of the context of that. These are friendlies, and So the other polarizing figure we're going to move on to is Liam Millar. I've seen, if you're in Facebook groups, if you're on X, if you're in and One Soccer comments on my channel, probably Alex, you're getting some on the pod as well. I see a lot of comments on Liam Millar, and I just kind of want to touch on this comment we had here saying, don't understand the Millar hate in our fan base. He was only dispossessed once, and he had the highest pass completion at 86%. I feel the biggest, at least in my opinion, the biggest reason Liam Millar gets criticized by the fans is because I think he had a really good showing in the U.S. game coming off the bench, but he wasn't in a ton of positions because he came on later where he had the ball, he was able to run, and then a decision just didn't go his way. When we saw him against Mexico, he had the ball, he was in the final third, and he would make the wrong pass, he would make the wrong ball, he would make the wrong decision, and then all of a sudden it was turning back the other way. And that's usually the number one thing that I see, and that's probably the last memory that Canadian fans have is what was Liam's last ball in the final third, because it's usually been the wrong one. So I don't know, because I think there's other good parts to his game, and I've defended Liam Millar for a while, but I feel like our fan base can't quite get over the decision making when it comes to the final third, because Liam can get himself in good positions. It just hasn't really, kind of like Cyle Larin, just hasn't quite worked out for him. If Liam Millar gets a couple assists here and there, these comments go away, similar to Larin, but it's just not really falling for him. Do you agree with that, or do you think the criticism is fair from the fan base, or what are your thoughts on Liam Millar and his performance last night?
I think it's twofold. Because I think the first fold is that, funnily enough, Millar, I wonder for him if it's also expectations, because Millar's been good at the club level. He had a good season last year for Preston. He's gotten off to a good start with Hull. The fans there are loving him. He's been putting in some good performance, some end product. And for whatever reason, for Canada, it hasn't clicked to that extent. And I do wonder if there's a certain level of, there's this Millar we see in the championship and we've seen in Basel. For Canada, it just hasn't turned into the goals, the assists. I think that's part of it. I think especially that Ali Ahmed, he puts on the Canada shirt, he hits another level. Jacob Schaffelberg puts on that Canada shirt, he's hitting another level. And they're kind of like, well, Millar's already at a good level at club. Why isn't the same happening in that regard? I think for Millar, it's just the final decisions for Canada, because I continue to like what Millar does in between the boxes. Like yesterday, for example, I'm looking at his stats here. Possession was good, like mentioned in the comments. Defensive was good. He was quite involved. Won a couple duels, was very lively. Great, that's why it's nice to have him. You get a little more sturdiness, you get a little more involved in the game. But then the reality is it's that final product, that final third. And I think there is something like he'll miss that pass, he'll miss that cross. There was one moment where he had a chance to just cut it back and cross, and he took 2-3 touches because he was looking for that perfect play. And I think it kind of stands out and is a bit more jarring when you see a Schaffelberg and Ahmed, because one thing those two are doing really well right now and why they've really shown, it's like Schaffelberg, it almost throws me off. Against the US, he barely touched the ball. Right, what he does, you look at FUTMOB, it was completed 9 out of 14 passes. But what he does is when he gets the ball in the final third, it's head down, dangerous cross, head down, shoot, score, cause a problem. Same with Ahmed, right? He has a knack of just get the ball, head down, dangerous cross, like he did to Larin. Very simple, very effective. And for Millar right now, I think he's just kind of overthinking things, is probably how I'd put it. It's just a little, that extra moment. It allows him to get dispossessed, or it takes away the crossing lane. I think he just needs to go a bit more instinctive. And I think that's probably the frustrating part. You watch him in the championship, it is instinctive. And that's why I wonder if for him, maybe there's a certain pressure. And that happens, right? Sometimes there's always a certain pressure you have to remember of playing for your national team, representing your country. And I think for Millar, it's just kind of like he's in a stage where he just needs to get that he just needs a moment. And unfortunately, right now he's in that moment, kind of like we were saying with Larin. It's overthinking a bit. It's taking 2-3 touches when it should be one, and I think that's kind of what's frustrating the fan base, especially when you see what the others around him, how decisive, how that's been.
I think you nailed it with the word instinctive. I really do. Picture another player on this Canadian team right now that you see negative comments about after the game. I really can't think of any unless it's Larin and Liam Millar, and it's the same kind of thing. Is that they're just overthinking it. They get themselves in good positions. They get chances. Liam Millar is definitely in dangerous positions where he just makes the wrong ball, and Cyle Larin has had plenty of opportunities. And the USA one's a perfect one because, like Alex, you kind of highlighted it when we talked about it in the last one. The ball comes in, doesn't need to take the touch, but he does take the touch. And then when he takes the touch, he does still get the shot off, but it's dead center on the ground right at Schulte. Where if he's he's an inform, he's not thinking about it. He just
He doesn't even need to look at Schulte. Just head down, eyes closed, goal.
And Liam Millar's the same way. Like playing for Hull, like if you look at his goal contributions, even towards the end of last season as well, it's simple. It's almost a little bit like Schaffelberg, except he's a righty where he'll cut in, he'll put a nice ball in, or he'll take a shot. It's just, I don't know. I just feel like now maybe the pressure's getting to them a little bit, that they know that they're pushing for starting minutes. They're trying to get there, because I do believe Liam Millar is right there. It's just he's competing with Schaffelberg, and Cyle Larin is a starter. And it's almost like he's holding on to that starting by a thread. And if there was another striker out there that was scoring goals, I feel like Cyle Larin would be on the bench. But yeah, it's tough. And I wish the best for those guys, and I hope that they can turn it around. I was really hoping, I believe I said, as just kind of an out there take, I think I was going to say, I'm like, you know what? I'm thinking a 2-0 Canada win. Millar scores 1 and Cyle Larin scores 1. That's what I was hoping for, because you want to see your players thrive and do well. And I know that these players have a role in this team. It's just that they're in a bit of a tough moment right now. But yeah, any final thoughts before we go on to our stock up, stock down to round out the stream?
Yeah, and I think the reality is for Canada, it's just about figuring how to get the most out of those guys, right? And maybe for Millar looked great off the bench against the US. Maybe just continue to, just also, because, if you're Jesse Marsh, just put your arm around him. Like, look, Liam, we know you can play at a very good level. You're doing well in the championship. You're pushing for the Premier League. Just don't overthink it. Just do your thing off the bench. Go from there. And same goes for Larin in the sense that, you have to imagine there's probably a pressure too. We have to remember on Larin, where Larin's the all-time leading scorer. Well, now he's the because Davis kind of caught up to him. But Larin's probably thinking I should be scoring because I'm the all-time leading scorer. For Marsh, just look, don't think about that. Even if it's 30 off the bench, focus on your game. Yeah, there is clearly an element of overthinking, and it is a bit harsh when you or stark when you see the instinctiveness that Chouanier played with. David, of course, we know he doesn't need saying. Larea, there's just certain flow state that they're in that Millar and Larin need to get to, and hopefully they can find it. Especially because in Millar's case, he's doing it for club. Okay, with Larin, there's also some form at club level that he's worrying about. But for Millar, he's flying at club level. So I think it's literally just going to be a wall he needs to get past. And to be fair to him, I think he had it's one of those where maybe if he scores against Jamaica a few years ago, it's a different story. But that's football sometimes, right? Those sorts of things stick with him, and he just needs a moment to make up for it, where who knows, maybe he'll score in the Nations League quarterfinal this fall, and that'll be his moment, where from that point on, we'll be looking at Millar as a reliable couple goals a year kind of guy in big games, the same way Schaffelberg's kind of popped up, because Schaffelberg's had those moments.
Yeah, and when it comes to just a well-rounded game as well, on the defensive side of the game, Liam Millar will offer something that Jacob Schaffelberg doesn't. So they're even though the final third hasn't quite clicked for Liam Millar, he does have a role in this team. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But all right, guys, if you're with us in the comment section, let us know. I, for one, like this moderated chat, Josh. No, but Fernando will be back. Fernando's been around my channel and One Soccer's channel for a while. I haven't seen him in, honestly, probably 3 months. He comes in with a fiery comment. So it was me, Fernando. I put you in a ban, but you'll be back here in probably 5 minutes. So then you can put in a nice little comment. But yes, moderate. He'll be back. It's only I think a 10-15 minute timeout, but yeah, I've seen him around for years. It's funny. All right. So, but if you're in the chat still and you're not banned like Fernando, let me know your guys' stock up, stock down. We won't touch on any players that we really kind of think stood the same. We'll begin with stock up. Maybe we won't do stock down. I don't know. We'll have some fun. But let's start between the sticks. I'm going to throw two keepers at you because I think both of them had good performances. Maxime Crépeau had a big time save in the first game. The goal he conceded was technically, in my opinion, offside. And then Dane St. Clair had two big saves last night. One, a really nice reaction save where he tipped it over the bar. And the other one, whether it was offside or not, it wasn't going to be called. The breakaway, he made a nice save as well. Did well coming off his line. I noticed that Dane was kind of playing a little bit in that sweeper keeper role from time to time yesterday as well. I thought he looked pretty comfortable with the ball at his feet, Alex. So stock up, stock down. Dane St. Clair, Maxime Crépeau. I'd argue maybe both their stock went up a little bit.
Crépeau held because Crépeau was good this summer. Nothing we haven't seen. St. Clair stock up. I think St. Clair kind of showed that, like, oh yeah, he is the guy at Minnesota. Similar how, you know, like there's not like that much of a difference between the two. Crépeau's obviously got more experience and he fits the system very well, and he is the guy. But I think it is nice to know that, like, for this cycle, that if for whatever reason Crépeau isn't available for a Nations League quarterfinal, a Nations League semi, a Nations League final, I think you feel pretty confident with St. Clair coming in. And I think it's been nice that Marsh has been giving St. Clair opportunities, and I hope he continues to do so, because there's kind of a nice 1A, 1B thing brewing there where Crépeau's, like, again, due to hierarchy, due to his experience, due to his Copa, like, he's clearly the starter. But yeah, I think it's not something where St. Clair's sitting there in the shadows just praying, hoping for a chance. St. Clair's competent enough to keep earning these appearances, and then if he's called upon, like, I have 100% faith if he's slotted in a semifinal that he'd do a job right now.
Crépeau can't be complacent now when you have someone pushing at you like that, which is great. They're going to make each other better. Exactly, they're going to make each other better. I thought it was a really good performance from Dane St. Clair. I agree with everything you said, and I feel like he's going to be leaving this window feeling really good. Clean sheet, couple big saves. I like it, and I want both keepers to continue to push each other, and it'll just make them both better. So I agree. It looks like a lot of the people in the chat agree as well. I was gonna go through the keepers to the defenders, to the midfielders, to the strikers, but the only name I am seeing is Ahmed way up. So we will go to Ali Ahmed. I agree, and I've asked you guys on stream a few different times. Did Ali Ahmed do enough to push a Tajon Buchanan? Because when you picture that right hand side, you picture the Canadian playing at Inter Milan, that's going to be the guy. Like, it's crazy to think that, you know, you can maybe take his place. I think Ahmed will make it very difficult for Buchanan to come back and just automatically get that starting role back. I think his stock went way up. And even the nice thing, I guess, for Jesse Marsh is that Ahmed is versatile. And we haven't really seen him play in the midfield yet for Canada, Alex. So there is some flexibility of how you want to fit Ahmed into your team going forward. I like him mostly down the right-hand side. It also opens up the door for Buchanan maybe shifting over to the left. But I'd say out of everyone this window, I would say Ahmed was our best player, and his stock went up the highest. Do you agree?
Yeah, Ahmed's his stocks are flying right now. I feel like right now you got to look at him as a starter for November, right? Especially if he keeps this up, and hopefully he can just build on this with the Whitecaps, because obviously they've got some big things ahead. They got a Canadian Championship final. They got playoffs. You know, they want to do big things in both, and hopefully Ahmed can kind of build off this performance and, you know, finish the year strong. Because if he keeps this up for country and he finds some form like this for club, there could be, you know, he's still at an age where he's 2000, right? So he's 23. He could very well be making a move in the next year, and that's exciting because he's already doing this, and he seems to be one of those players that just rises to the occasion. He's always been like that, because I had the opportunity of, you know, being out here in Vancouver. I think I watched one of his first Next Pro games. Was one of the best players on the field. Later that year, he made his MLS debut. He just came on and was instantly like one of the most noticeable players. Like, he has this ability of, no matter the stage, and it was last year at the Gold Cup, dropped in, one of the best players on the field. Like, he just seems to rise to those big games, and I think that's exactly what you want out of a guy like that.
Absolutely. I'm hoping for, you know, a move to Europe in the future for him. I think that he's maybe primed for a move, maybe a little bit more than even a Jacob Schaffelberg is. I just think he's the right profile. He's versatile, very technically gifted, good first touches. A couple of people have highlighted in the chat. You guys seem to 100% agree. So I'd say the player of the window for Canada definitely would go to Ali Ahmed. So big shout out for him, and he'll be feeling really good leaving camp. I think another player whose stock went up, Alex, is Mathieu Choinière. I thought Chouanier had a really, really good performance against the United States. I thought he had, a pretty solid showing as well against Mexico. But really, the thing that caught my attention the most was, and I said this for Copa America, which is why I was a little shocked to see when we were playing at times in a 4-4-2 beside Eustachio, you saw Azorio, because I thought that position would have been perfectly suited for Chouanier. And now it looks like Jesse Marsch is maybe wanting to test it out or give him a chance. And I think he looks really good in this system. I think he's one of those players that's just tailor-made for it. And if you want to see what he's good at, just watch back that US game because he was excellent in it.
Yeah, Chouanier, like shout out to what he did. I think he made some interesting discussions for Jesse Marsch to now have of, man, like Chouanier, there's a player in there to be used that fits the system, can press, is good on the ball. Like, don't forget that he's like secure in possession. Because, of course, a lot is made of his physical attributes in the sense that he can run, he can do a lot of defensive work, but he can also keep the ball and bring a certain level of that. So, just, excited to see him make his first appearances for Grasshopper and get his European adventure started off on the right foot, because he's definitely going to be in the mix now to earn more minutes going forward as a starter or as a sub.
So there's 3 other players I want to highlight, and I don't know if they're stock ups or if it's just maybe as expected. I thought Bombito had a really solid window. I liked Richie as well. And then, of course, Jonathan David had a phenomenal performance. But it's kind of hard to say, his stock already, in my opinion, is high. Like, I just kind of as expected. But I did really, really like David's game against the United States. I just thought it was a complete performance from the type of striker Jesse Marsch is looking for. So, if we don't give him a stock up, then maybe we're just highlighting him because they did have solid windows. But would you give a stock up to a Bombito David? Because a stock up doesn't do anything to David. He's already top of the pecking order, right? But he had a good window. So what do you think? Bombito, Larea, David, who do you want to touch on?
I think just to say all 3. David, it's nice for him to get some end product in the sense that that's 3 goals in his last chunk, which might not seem a lot, but when then you realize how many goals Canada scored, he's kind of been a key source of offense. Good to see. That's why I'm kind of the team of keep riding more through him, right? Because now under Marsch, it must be what? They had 2 this window, 2 against Uruguay. Then it was 2 in the group stages. So that's 6 goals under Marsch. David scored 3 and assisted 2. Keep running things through David. Maybe those numbers will.
Did David score 4 goals at Copa America?
No, he scored 2 because he scored
2. Again. Yeah, I was saying. Okay. Sorry, I thought you said 2 goals against Uruguay and then 2 in the group stage. I was like, wait,
no, I just mean as a team.
As a team, okay, yes. Okay. I was sorry, confused. Yes.
No worries. So that's what I mean. He's scored. That's what he's involved in 80% of Canada's goals. Just if Jesse Marsch ride that hot hand, because it's gonna go bring you good places. As for Bombito, just every time he plays, you can see why Jesse Marsch was not afraid this summer to be like, yeah, I've worked with Upamecano, I've worked with some top players, and he's that level, because it just feels like every game he takes a step, and it's remarkable because you don't often see that for center backs. It's a little more obvious for wingers, for forwards, because you see the end product, you see that. But it's true with Bombito. He just seems to add another layer to his game every few weeks. Super excited. It feels like he's the guy at the back now. If it wasn't clear before, he's really the guy. Shout out to Cornelius though. Him and Cornelius got a good thing going on. Hopefully they can both continue. Well, Cornelius can continue to play at Marseille. There's a good thing going on there. As for Larea, he's just always been a guy who seems to play his best in the national team shirt. So good to show. I think he's just going to be crucial this next cycle, because Johnson, I think, clearly is the guy at right back when healthy, just because the way he fits the system. But it is nice to know that Larea can fill in there, and that also we can't forget that he can fill in on the right. He can fill in at left back. He can kind of be a jack of all trades. You can bring him off the bench for energy. You can start him for energy. He just kind of fits a lot of roles, and it's nice to know that there's a bit of a reliability factor with Larea.
Well said. And yeah, so not really a stock up, but as expected from 3 players that are definitely important to this team. But that's going to wrap up today's stream. Our breakdown of the Mexico game and just kind of touching on the window as a whole was sponsored by our partners at tonybet. So a big shout out to them. And yeah, that pretty much wraps up our coverage for this window. In the next game, I will highlight, because someone mentioned it in the chat, Alex, so we don't have to touch on it too much, but we have the scheduled friendly against Panama, and apparently it is somewhat important because I just want to see if I can find the comment. It will impact FIFA rankings, and it could determine who's third and who's fourth in the Nations League ranking. I believe it was M who put it. There it is. So October FIFA points will determine who is third seed and who is fourth seed in Nations League. So it's very interesting when you have a friendly that actually, means something. Well, like really means something, like directly for the next Nations League. So just wanted to highlight there. I meant to get to that comment earlier, but I completely forgot about it. So shout out to M for that.
Pressure on Canada to win at home. It's last time they played at home was the Jamaica loss. So, even though this is a friendly, it won't mean as much. This is obviously, a good game in that regard. Because, if you finish the number 3 seed, I think US has got a pretty firm hold on the number 1 seed and Mexico's number 2. It means you more likely to face Mexico in the semifinals versus the US in the semifinals. As you saw this window, US ended up, they kind of beat the US and drew Mexico. I think you'd still rather face Mexico. Of course, Pochettino's going to come in. Maybe those US players are going to remember how to want to fight for each other, fight for the shirt, and have a little bit more of a coherent identity than they showed. Whereas Mexico, that was kind of like Aguirre. You saw it, like the way he was sweating through that shirt, like he was fighting for his life for his team to scrap out a 0-0 draw in a friendly. I think if you're Canada, you back yourself in a home or in a one-off semifinal against Mexico right now. So that number 3 seed does matter, and I think that's what Marsh was saying about this window, or these two windows, because beating the US was good for CONCACAF points. Drawing Mexico, I think, will at least do something.
Yeah,
it's not the FIFA rankings, it's the CONCACAF index. So I guess to keep an eye out for October, it sounds like Canada's going to get creative. Jesse Marsh kind of hinted that they're going to do some sort of friendly against a club. Yeah. And based on the way he worded it, like it either looks like it's going to be one of the MLS clubs, or who knows. We're having all sorts of interesting discussions. Could it be some CPL All-Star team?
I know. That's where my mind went too.
like it could be something. My guess is based on that. Expect an A team against Panama and what should be a great game at BMO Field. And then we'll see a little more rotation, a little more fun, maybe some new faces, some Seager at DM. Who knows? Maybe some other dual nationals in that, like, whatever you want to call that game. So lots to look forward to in October.
Yeah,
a unique one.
I'm going to say, it's funny, Alex, I haven't talked to you about it, but I said yesterday on stream, I was like, it would make just perfect sense. I feel like it might be too much to ask for in a month away, but put a CPL All-Star team together, make them take on the national team. That would be so much fun to cover and be a part of. I don't know if it's going to happen or what type of club or who they will play, but definitely something to think about. And I feel like, if CPL is watching, our bosses, try to make it happen. I would be there, and I'm assuming Alex might make his way down. Are you going to the Panama game in October?
No, because Canada or the Whitecaps women's team plays the Thorns that same night.
Oh, okay.
So that's a chance to see some continental action. A bit of a bad clash. Would have been good to see both. So I'll watch on the telly.
That's all right. Yeah, you'll watch from afar. But all right, that is all. I will be away for the next couple weeks on my honeymoon. So I will see Alex in a bit, and I'll see you guys as well. Drop a like on your way out. Drop a sub. Appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers, friends.